Duh.
Hey gang, my name is Elle, my pronouns are she/her, and this is how many apocalypses for us now?
6, at least. Feels like 100.
So in case you couldn't guess based off my name, my profile picture, the name of this video, and the shirt that I'm wearing, I am a huge fan of the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I started watching it when I was 11, I'd just started high school, and it came along at the perfect time.
That's everything, huh? No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left?
Me.
Part of Buffy's success is the fact that it didn't matter who you were. Anyone could relate to the story of how a kid becomes an adult, whether through Buffy's own struggles or the struggles of her friends and family, a group that become known as the Scooby Gang. Whilst I'm here, I may not make another Buffy video ever again, so I'm going to take this opportunity to express some thoughts I have about the show in general. Skip to this time code if you want to get to the main point of what the video is. I'll be as quick as possible, give it all I've got. To quote High School Musical, that is my plan. First of all,
I just want to acknowledge that Buffy's creator is currently facing a lot of criticism, and I believe every person who has spoken out. But that's not what this video is about, and my feelings about it all are too complicated for me to vocalize right now anyway. So, just enjoy this cute picture and we'll leave this there. Anyway, as I was saying,
I love how the show is written. When it's funny, it's genuinely hilarious, and when it's sad, I struggle to find a show that has captured tragedy and heartbreak as well and consistently as Buffy has, whether that's The Body, or Wild at Heart, or Lies My Parents Told Me. The way the whole of season 6 depicts self-destructive behaviour and depression and isolation. I haven't personally encountered many pieces of media that captures depression how well Buffy does. How it so elegantly balances so many different genres and themes, and although definitely not always perfect, it delivered so many lessons on growing up that I still really value to this day.
To forgive is an act of compassion, Buffy. It's not done because people deserve it. It's done because they need it.
I do know it's important to keep fighting. I learned that from you.
But we never
Win.
Not completely.
Never will. That's not why we fight. We do it because there's things worth fighting for.
Nothing's ever simple anymore. I'm constantly trying to work it out. Who to love or hate, who to trust. It's just like the more I know, the more confused I get.
I believe that's called growing up.
I'd like to stop then, okay?
Revolution is a theme that repeats throughout the show, by the way, and it absolutely kicks ass. The show literally ends with Buffy wielding a bright red weapon that is the source of the Slayer's power, and looks like the Slayer's version of a hammer and sickle, and whose final plan is to redistribute that power amongst every potential Slayer in the world during a speech which could basically be a call for workers of the world to unite.
This isn't about wishes. This is about choices. Here's the part where you make a choice. What if you could have that power? Now. I say my power should be our power. From now on, every girl in the world who might be a Slayer will be a Slayer. Every girl who could have the power will have the power. Slayers. Every one of us. Make your choice. Are you ready to be strong?
Buffy explores themes of power systems, corruption, rebellion, class, gender, body as commodity, lots of things. I'm just saying, if it's been a while since you watched it, there's a lot there when you revisit it.
It's pretty radical, B.
I love that you can see how well the writers knew these characters from the beginning, and you can pick up on subtle pieces of foreshadowing that set a precedent for things both small and big that don't happen until a few seasons later.
Then tell me you don't love me! Tell me that you don't love me.
I don't.
Let me tell you something about Willow.
She bothered me. She's so weak and accommodating.
She's a loser, and she always has been.
She's always letting people walk all over her, and
With her stupid mousy ways.
I just couldn't let her live.
And now, Willow's a junkie.
I see now where the path of vice leads. Because she messed up everything she touched. I don't ever want to be like that.
Another aspect of the show is the soundtrack, not as in the bands that play at the Bronze, although most of these bands are great too, but the show's official soundtrack with composers Christoph Beck, yeah, that Christoph Beck, Robert Duncan, and Thomas Funder, also sometimes credited as, yeah. People give season 7 shit for what they did to Charles's character. They say he acted out of character, which he does, and that's because for some terrible reason the filmmakers cut out a crucial piece of dialogue from Lies My Parents Told Me.
Giles, I thought, really needed to tell her I killed Ben. Here was an innocent Ben who I killed to keep Glory from coming back. I mean, that was the end of season 5. And I was so adamant that it must be in there, and we shot this long speech of his confession. And when we looked at it afterwards, we went, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
So when you look at it through that lens, it makes a lot more sense and is in character, but in choosing to leave it out, it just looks like he doesn't trust Buffy not to be an over-emotional woman keeping her honey alive for shits and giggles, even though she's already proven that she can kill someone she loves if she has to. The other thing I want to address is any Dawn haters. She's a bit whiny and annoying sometimes, sure, but she was still willing to die for the sake of everyone without a moment's hesitation at the end of season 5, despite her being younger than Buffy was at the beginning of the show at this point. I'm pretty sure canonically she's 14 here. Also, her dad abandoned her. She finds out her entire life up until this point has basically been a lie. Her mum's dead, her sister died for 3 months then came back suicidally depressed. Her 2 replacement parent figures broke up, then one of them nearly got her killed, first by a demon, then in a car accident. Another replacement father figure abandons her twice. She has to kill the boy she has her first kiss with. Another carer figure turns out to be an attempted rapist of her sister. Then the one person who was showing any consistency in her life at this point is killed, and her body is left for Dawn to find on her own at 15.
Hello? The door was... Tara?
Dawn then stays with Tara's body for what is clearly hours, and when she's finally discovered, what does she say?
I didn't want to leave her alone.
And that's who Dawn really is. That's such a testament to her character. She's loyal and sweet and caring, but sure, go off about how she's a bit shrill and whiny after everything she's been through. Lastly, I think a lot of people are confused as to how Spike was acting at the end of season 6. I think a lot of people view it like how they view Dawn in No Place Like Home, where it feels like the writers were trying to do something cheap with his character. You know how in No Place Like Home, Dawn was being framed like a villain or like she was evil when she never was, but she was acting completely out of character just to try and kind of get one over on the audience and serve a plot twist of some kind. And I think people view how Spike acted in terms of speaking really misogynistically about Buffy after seeing Red. Yeah. And then turning around and end up the whole quest that he went through was to get his soul. I think some people understandably don't view that as being logical and view it as Spike was only talking that way to mislead you into thinking that he was going to get his chip removed.
It's the chip!
The Slayer. Bitch thinks she's better than me. Ever since I got this bleeding chip in my head, things ain't been right. Bitch is gonna see a change.
I'll take anything you can throw at me, if it'll get me what I need to take care of the Slayer.
Make me what I was, so Buffy can get what she deserves.
Very well. We will return your soul.
But I have a theory, about why that happened, and I actually think that it's in keeping with Spike's character too. I think Spike was fully believing he was going to get his chip removed when he went to the weird demon-y thing that lives in a cave. Or rather, in this moment he was fully committed to believing he was going to get his chip removed. We have experiences of Spike conflating anger and violence with love. Spike being in denial about his feelings is the reason Drusilla broke up with him, and it's a beat we've already seen played out several times with Buffy. He states he wants to watch her die, then goes and helps her.
And she'll be dead just a little longer than that.
What do you want now?
What's wrong?
Thought you wanted me to stay away from you. Isn't that what you sang?
Fine. I hope you dance till you burn.
I hope she fries. I'm free of that bitch dies. I better help her out.
Spike is the most passionate character in the whole show, and also a vampire, so he is emotionally stunted. It makes sense to me that he wouldn't be able to differentiate between his own emotions and passions. Especially if they've been triggered by pain or rejection, whether he's right to feel that pain or not. He loves Buffy, he hates Buffy, he hates himself, and the things driving his eventual re-ensoulment are denial, love, and spite. That's very in character for him. Anyway, that was it. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Oh no, wait, one more thing. If you identify as masc or a man, I have impromptu dating advice for you. If you're interested in how best to conduct yourself with literally anyone you wish to date, I cannot make it clearer than this. It's literally the only thing you'll ever need to know. So I could literally spend hours talking about Buffy, but as you can tell by the title of this video, there is one standpoint I wanted to focus on in particular, and that is Tara Maclay as played by Amber Benson, aka Buffy's very own lesbian cottagecore Disney princess. So she means a lot to me as an adult because of what people like Tara mean for society in general, and as a small baby queer kid, watching this femme, quiet, gentle woman shamelessly love women, never seeing her romantically attached to a man, all while being loved herself not in spite of her queerness but because of it, is representation that I know I needed. I loved to see it.
I just don't see why he couldn't end up with Esmeralda.
No, see, it can't end like that, because all of Quasimodo's actions were selfishly motivated. He had no moral compass, no understanding of right. Everything he did out of love for a woman who would never be able to love him back.
As a small, baby, queer, traumatized kid, Tara mattered even more. Watching a character be abused, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but on 4 separate occasions, and seeing that none of this ended up dictating how she treated others was so important to me. I define abuse here, by the way, as Tara's autonomy, aka her ability to make informed consensual choices, were either violated or taken from her completely.
Tara, I didn't mean to... To what? Violate my mind like that? How could you, Willow? How could you after what Glory did to me? You're helping yourself now, fixing things to your liking, including me.
Whether by magical manipulation or emotional manipulation, Tara was abused throughout her run on the show by multiple villains, and what did this do to her? It made her stronger, not in some kind of twisted Sansa logic way where what she went through showed her how much she needed to toughen up. Nope. It made her stronger because after going through all that, she loved stronger. She had greater compassion and empathy for people around her, even her abusers, while never excusing their behaviour. She was boundaried with her compassion and empathy, which allowed her to grow as a person and therefore contribute more to the found community she had in the Scooby Gang. That is, until...
You think you could just do that to me?
So, some thoughts about her treatment on the show. First of all, Tara is a prime example of the bury your gays trope. That's not the purpose of this specific video. There are other creators who have already made that video and done it really, really well. I would highly recommend checking them out. But it is worth noting that when it comes to the bury your gays trope, there may as well be a picture of Tara underneath the TV trope page. The writers have said repeatedly that this wasn't intentional. I think it's fair to say that that's true, that they just didn't know any better, unfortunately. Writers from the show have come out since and said that they regretted killing Tara off. And reading more online, it looks like Tara's death was never intended to be permanent, as much as there were just issues with Amber Benson's scheduling.
Also, thank you Amber Benson for supposedly not coming back as the first in conversations with dead people, because if this is true, she was right that this would have ruined Tara's legacy as kind and benevolent if she'd then turned around and done this. No thank you.
Then there's the fact that she's not just an example of the bury your gaze trope, she is also absolutely an embodiment of the feminine. Her character introduction aligns with Riley's in season 4, and while Riley is basically an embodiment of the masculine, what with him being all gun-toting action man, cracking open some cold ones with the boys whilst holding up a giant no girls allowed sign in their elite, ugly, khaki military clubhouse, Tara was about magic, nature, love, compassion, the earth. We can even see this coded in the colours she often chooses to wear.
Face punching. I'm not so good with the whole
Swimming?
violence.
Her femininity is expressed very clearly in these traits. So the fact that she is murdered in an accidental shooting by a woman-hating, rapist, misogynistic incel, it felt like a final violation of her character to me, and she is a character that was violated so often throughout the show. Although the character herself is allowed to be resolutely strong in her empathy for people, unfortunately the show itself frames her murder in a much more Sansa-ish way, because if she hadn't forgiven Willow and gotten back together with her, she never would have encountered Warren in the first place, which leaves you thinking Tara's gentility and compassion, aka her femininity, and her queerness is ultimately what gets her killed. The writers may not have intended this, but boy howdy did queer girls all over the world get that carrier pigeon of a message. This inability to read a room in terms of the messaging on the writer's part was amplified even more by the fact that Joss Whedon chose this moment to do a funny opening credits bit that he had apparently long wanted to do since season 1, where a character is introduced in the main credits just to die in the same episode. Instead of recognising that cutting and pasting this idea onto a different character has completely different connotations when that character is a minority, has been sidelined forever, and has had way more screen time than other characters who historically have been listed in the main credits while they've still not been, as opposed to a character we never would have gotten to know and who bears no importance on the rest of the plot, we got this, and unfortunately it made the feeling of injustice around her death much worse. Okay, so as with any fandom, there are popular and unpopular opinions, and I know I have an unpopular opinion, and that is, I actually really like season 7.
Yes! This is where we belong!
At least 3 of my top 10 all-time favourite episodes are from season 7, so I can't dislike it that much. My top 10, by the way, is here for anyone who's interested. But even as a season 7 apologist, I acknowledge the criticism it gets, which is basically that it's trying to do too much in one season, and to move the plot along it forgoes a lot of character development, and characters start to act out of character, which for a show that has become so iconic, because these feel like characters that are real breathing people with complex lived histories and experiences, it's like the number one betrayal you could do as a writer for that show. So to have character development and the characters put first established firmly by the last season, to then have moments like this happen,
a dramatic recreation in the style of YouTube reaction channels to finding out crucial character history and conflict, is getting dropped without being explored.
Willow, she told me to tell you.
Tell me what?
Kick his ass.
To the tone of SpongeBob 5 seasons later.
If you knew what I felt—
I killed Angel. Do you even remember that? I would have given up everything I had to be with. I loved him more than I will ever love anything in this life. And I put a sword through his heart because I had to.
That all worked out okay?
Do you remember cheering me on? Both of you. Do you remember giving me Willow's message? Kick his ass?
I never said
This
that.
is different.
It is always different. It's always complicated. And at some point, someone has to.
My My point is, as much as I love season 7, I hate that we never get to see any of the characters grapple with missing Tara after her death, apart from Willow. Not even Dawn after finding her body. Tara tends to be a powerful supporting player, her greatest power arguably being that she brings out the vulnerability in the characters around her, which allows them to emotionally overcome obstacles to then tackle them physically. Compare this to the type of work Tara does for the group, which I realised watching her scenes back is essentially reproductive labour, which if you've watched my chicken run video you will know is very much the domain historically of people who menstruate and is absolutely coded feminine. Yet another way in which her character embodies feminine traits, and this kind of labour is definitely undervalued in current society, and this is reflected in the show in the way Tara never gets any credit or thanks for looking after, well, basically everyone.
Tara, can you stay here and watch Dawn? Of course.
And we never get to see these characters that she did so much work for fully talk about their grief when she's died outside of how it's affected Willow. Some of the most profound moments on the show are just Tara quietly being there for someone. That's her empathy. But her impact on these characters is palpable, comforting, a light. We never see Tara's wake. We never see the other characters reference missing her. Because of this, we never get any emotional catharsis to help us process Tara's death. This is made even worse by Willow's rushed relationship with Kennedy. The way Tara's character gets treated within the show emphasizes something to me about the world that we live in. We live in a society that, intentionally or not, reinforces certain ways in which we interact with each other. It's really interesting to me to see how often world leaders talk about the myriad of issues that we're facing right now in combative terms, like we're fighting a war, even when we're not fighting a war. Consider how much prep politicians are given before speaking on certain issues. I don't think that this tactic is coincidental. I think it's a very purposeful tactic. It serves a specific purpose to rally national pride, and it is very effective. Even in Buffy, there are some stellar speeches that I still love that essentially work to rally the troops when morale is down, but it also works to feed into an us versus them narrative. And it makes it easier to, for example, scapegoat certain groups as the cause of our problems instead of calling for greater understanding and empathy and connection between countries as we face issues as a global community. Using language to communicate gentility and compassion instead of conflict is something Tara is great at and could serve the world much better right now. I just want to say that I completely understand the desire to watch people who most typically embody the qualities we most often think of when we think of success. You know, strength, loudness, confidence, power. In fact, it makes sense to be drawn to them when you think about the fact that society rewards these qualities so much. Which also isn't a coincidence when you consider that a lot of these traits are coded as masculine, therefore more associated with leadership, though not always, not all men, blah blah blah. There's this thing called motive attribution asymmetry, right? And long story short, it's the belief that the group that you belong to, whether that's faith or political party or even family and group of friends, is the belief that your group operates from a place of love and connection, but other groups operate from a place of hatred. These things often mean that you won't engage with that group because you just assume that they're unreasonable or that they can't be reached. Within the study, the only thing that got people to reconsider their position and change their mind was the offer of a financial incentive. It is disappointing to feel like the only reason people would ever question their own judgment of someone is if there's a financial incentive. But then, if you think about it more, it goes to show that people's ability to understand and empathise with other groups hasn't gone away. It's just been clouded by rampant self-interest. It's getting people past that rampant self-interest. We need honest, vulnerable dialogue right now, not debate, which is still about losing and winning and power. Emphasis on connection, not shaming. One of my favourite things about Tara is she never uses shame. Shame is never a conducive tool in getting people to genuinely, introspectively look at their beliefs and actions. Shame is also a tool that has been heavily politicised in recent years. Shame researcher Brené Brown draws clear lines between shame, humiliation, embarrassment, and guilt. Shame is I am bad, I am wrong. Guilt, embarrassment, and even humiliation are places you can grow from, whereas shame doesn't offer any room to grow and learn because that perceived badness or wrongness is a permanent state of being. A lot of people don't talk about what they're ashamed of because it's the deeply held belief that there is something about you that is so different from other people, or bad or unlovable, that if anyone knew, they would agree that essentially you don't deserve love and belonging. That's why shame can't withstand being spoken aloud, because shame can't withstand empathy and connection. See also.
You're going through a really hard time and you're...
What? Using him? What's okay about that?
It's not that simple.
It is. It's wrong. I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong, please.
Brené Brown describes shame as an epidemic right now, and a key indicator into why people are voting the way they are.
There's two things. I had two weird premonitions. One, I thought Brexit was definitely going to pass. And two, I thought Trump would get elected. I watched Trump during the election period give a stump speech somewhere, and he said, hey, and for all of you folks that feel small because you're not politically correct, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. And I thought, shit, he just spoke to millions and millions of people who have felt small, unheard, ashamed.
Americans are exhausted, trying to keep up with the latest lists of approved words and phrases. The goal of cancel culture is to make decent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it.
I know there are some that say that shaming can be an effective tool if done on a public platform. It can be a means of pointing to someone and saying,
hey, look how stupid and ridiculous this person is being. You don't want to be like them.
Which I think may work to an extent, but only in it offers a community based on the exclusion of the person that you're pointing the finger at. And I guess my thinking on that is, how far can you really go trying to really change people's minds and getting them to care about people outside of themselves based on mutual shaming as you can go compared to empathy?
Also, I just want to emphasize that shaming is not the same as trying to hold someone accountable. Accountability is still about boundary setting and trying to connect. Shaming isn't. Attempts to connect can become a dogpile, and that's not conducive either. Each case where someone feels shamed is different and complex. Thought I should acknowledge that.
Human connection has been proven to be a power that can heal in extraordinary ways, from emotional and psychological trauma to physical illnesses and injuries. And Tara is a very literal manifestation of this power. She facilitates connection and belonging in every person she encounters, probably from having grown up not knowing it herself. I think Tara is a perfect example of the kind of person that will be crucial in moving the world forward from where it is right now. I think she was one of the most powerful characters on the show because of her impact on the show, but also... Okay, quick headcanon. Everyone talks about Willow being all-powerful, and she clearly is, but I actually believe Tara may have been just as powerful as Willow is. When Tara is in situations where she either forgets her trauma so they can't hold her back, or she steps into her power, she instinctively becomes more of a leader. Even when she's in a very unstable or vulnerable place, she reads people in ways Willow is never able to. She's shown to be psychic, quick on her feet under pressure, and when she feels confident is capable of casting powerful spells.
Also, it's notable that Tara mostly uses magic to defend, connect, or help others. We only see her use extreme violence once, and that was a life or death situation.
Personally, I do think it means something that even though Tara had absolutely nothing to do with the enjoining spell, the First Slayer still chose Tara to be the manifestation of her voice to help her communicate. Icky dated politics of this aside. Tara picked up on Willow's magic before Willow picked up on Tara's, and I don't think that's because Tara isn't powerful enough for Willow to register it. I think it's because Tara is attuned to magic in a way Willow isn't. Tara respects it. Tara acknowledges the importance of boundaries in magic and in life in ways Willow doesn't start being fully able to do until season 7. In this way, Willow is actually really far behind Tara. Willow's full growth is shown by her doing what Tara had done nearly all along. By acting as a conduit for the source of the Slayer power and all the underpowered potentials, Willow finally understands what Tara was saying in this scene.
Because witches can't be allowed to alter the fabric of life for selfish reasons. Wiccans took an oath a long time ago to honor that.
She empowers all these young women and, in her own words,
We saved the world.
We changed the world. I can feel them, Buffy. All over. Slayers are awakening everywhere.
That's Tara's impact, arguably on both Willow and Buffy. It's the qualities personified in Tara that led to this revolution even being possible.
I smell power.
Tara's a really powerful witch.
Not really.
No, really.
The world would be a much better place if we had more people like Tara Maclay in it. Even if the culture at large doesn't acknowledge the work they do, whether that's in the show or in real life. I say all this as someone who recognises the tendency within myself to want to lock people away in a mental box when they don't fit with my own beliefs and standards. I find it really hard to meet someone where they're at and be actively listening and curious instead of defensive. It's much easier to just hand wave those people away and say,
Well, they're just bad people, and that's that.
But I know if people had viewed me as beyond learning and beyond growing, I wouldn't be where I am now. So, as much as this video is me wishing that our culture held characters like Tara up as aspirational more often, it also serves as a reminder for me personally. The world right now is the world right now. I believe that if we want to make it better, we have to change some of the ways that we've been communicating. And I personally believe we can look to the Taras of the world for how best to go. Active listening, curiosity, boundaries, vulnerability, empathy, courage. We need these qualities. Now more than ever. I think I'm going to end this video by quoting Brené Brown. It's a sign-off she frequently uses that I think best encapsulates Tara. Stay awkward, stay brave, stay kind.
Also 2 things. 1, if someone knows where I can buy this top, please tell me, and 2, I will be awaiting Anthony Head and Amber Benson's debut folk album for the rest of my existence.